Welcome back, friends and scoundrels, to Roll to Live. Today we're doing our updated, or our latest adventure log.
Session 11.
Session 11, I guess. I'm Bran, by the
I'm
way.
Lynn.
And, yeah, so let's dive into it. We left off with you guys entering the alchemist lab, and I realized right after we cleaned up and left Matt's that I could have cliffhangered it a little bit better by having somebody find the goblin that was hiding in the corner that we led off with today.
So we entered the alchemist lab to the sounds of whimpering, and Zip noticed a goblin crouched and crying in a corner.
Which was a fun little thing. So Zip focused in on this goblin, trying to talk to it, and it wasn't really responding to him. It did get up and start walking in his direction, but Gel, I think, started walking around the room, and he noticed an oily pool on another table, or on a table.
Information I believe he kept to himself because Frank jumped up on the table.
Kind of kept to himself. It was like he went over and looked at it and started moving on, and Frank was like, bloop!
It's because Frank likes to give himself the height advantage, so he immediately jumped onto the table.
And was attacked by a gray ooze. Which you guys didn't know was a gray ooze at first. So this thing started whipping and wailing around and couldn't really hit anybody. So tentacles are winding all over the place from this thing. So we started combat, which put me in my timer roll for the goblin thing to do whatever it was going to do. And I say continue to just walk towards Zip because Zip was interacting with it. And everybody else kind of focused on this thing that was trying to attack Frank and missing all over the place.
I didn't miss.
I didn't say you missed. The ooze thing was missing all over the place.
The ooze thing was missing.
So Gur comes up and he managed to get a bite on it. I don't remember all the details of that little combat bit. But then Gel comes over with his long sword and slashes on the tentacle that Gur's holding because it's a nice easy hit. And after he slashed through it, a little bit of the goo stuck to it and started causing damage to his sword.
So that's when he switched to magic missile and accidentally did an injury to Frank.
Yeah. But back to the goblin. So this thing happened over here. This creature who is not directly interacting with Zip is continuing to approach towards him. So Zip used Create Bonfire cantrip, which this creature did not like, and started screeching and came around the table the other way, at which point you notice that it has its own ooze tracking behind it. And this creature turns out to be an Obelix, which I modified from, I forget what the youngest version is called, but it goes from the little one, which is just a puddle, to a straight adult Obelix. So I kind of meshed those two together and created the young Obelix. That's what this creature was. It only had one memory that was solid for it from whatever it had consumed. And so that came around and started... who's it going to start attacking? I forget. Do you remember?
Well, from the looks of it, Gil is closest.
Yeah. I think, yeah, because it came around and...
did that madness to him.
And hit him and also did a memory eat.
Which was at the same time that Frank retaliated by hitting him in the head with the blunt end of his
spear. Yeah. Frank also tried stabbing the gray ooze with the tip of his spear, but it was slowly trying to seep out from under him to the table, and I believe Iedos got a hit on it and you got a hit on it there, didn't you?
It did. We did competing Toll the Deads.
That's right. Or no, I thought that was on the Obelix.
Was it?
Something. So Gil gets mind memory eated, and he didn't like what this thing had done, so he actually ran away from it. I don't think I remember to do an attack of opportunity.
No, he disengaged and then.
Oh, that's right. So he disengaged and was like, "I'm getting away from this thing," and then stepped back. Shook it off a little bit, stepped back forward, did his magic missile, which is when Frank actually got hit. Yeah, it was.
He got hit when he attacked the ooze because he was standing in it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yes, definitely.
So something happened and the ooze ended up dying because it's gray ooze and it's not very strong. Which it was just meant to be a secondary distractory kind of thing to focus attention off the Obelix a little bit.
So then we all refocused our attention on the
Obelix. I mispronounced it just a second ago. And it just kind of swarmed up on it and beat the crap out of it.
Yeah, it tried to flee, but Zip moved his conjure bonfire behind it so it couldn't flee.
And then Iedos, in a great move for later, started himself on fire. And he had, it also sets his weapon on fire or something. I'm not sure exactly what he's using, but his weapon sets on fire and that did a lot of damage. That's what caused it to run, but he also gets engulfed in flames. So there's this flame coming towards it, flame behind it. It's kind of trapped and you guys just wailed on it. So not a bad little encounter though.
No, it was pretty good.
It was fun. There was a lot of good role playing and not necessarily story development or anything, but good storytelling there also.
There was good role playing afterwards too when we started rummaging about the room.
Yeah, kind of from my side forced a couple of things like I didn't really have to force one in this one because Zip rolled high enough in his check. It was just a matter of getting to that roll. Had he not rolled high on that one, I probably would have had to force it somewhere, but going off of Hanker Inferno, 3 T's, the threat, the trap, the trigger, or the threat, the timer, the treat, or his 3 T's. So obviously the threat was 2 creatures, and the timer was supposed to be the Obelix attacking, which I'll come back to that in a second. And then the treat for this room was a bunch of potions of greater healing, which I don't think anybody's actually discovered how good they are yet.
No, we've only discovered that they do some healing because we found them. We weren't sure what they were, but luckily Leia has one lone regular healing potion. So they compared the two and thought it might be a similar potion, even though the viscosity was different. So Aedos took advantage of Gil's confusion and convinced him to test it.
Well, I was trying to convince him to give it to Frank to test by telling him it was alcohol.
Such an instigator.
And then it turned around and everybody convincing Gil to try it.
And he didn't take the whole potion, he just took a swig of it, so he only healed a little bit.
Yeah, so his actual physical wounds healed up, but he was still dizzy in his brain. But it was enough to convince everybody that it wasn't poisonous or going to harm him or anything. I think he also found... I think it was him. Found a potion of... Or not a potion, an vial of acid. Because he was just checking general shelves and noticed one that had a skull on it, and I think he grabbed it. Pretty sure he did. Oh, what else happened here?
Leia found a toenail in a jar.
Yeah. Which is a potion of giant strength. I just haven't figured out which one yet.
Well, she doesn't have it anymore anyway. She
Yeah.
traded it for healing potions.
Coming back to the timer thing, something I decided in the moment was to not be so stuck in the timer. If something happens, like the bonfire, was a round or two before the Obelix was going to actually attack. So I think it was a round because it would have moved up and then attacked Zip. So with the fire happening, I'm like, okay, this thing's now been triggered, so it's going to come around and...
Learning your lesson from the spectator and gazer encounter.
A little bit, yeah. And it just... For in the setting, it made sense that, alright, this thing's doesn't like fire. Fire's happened in front of it, now it's mad. So its desire to attack has just been accelerated. It just has to change its course is all.
So we move on up to the next level.
Yeah. Which is now something I probably should have started this off with, and if you remember, if you listen to the last episode, I think I mentioned it. I'm using Lolorin's Tower, which was a little adventure thing that we got out of Dungeon Crate. I started bringing over the adventure story that Wayne had started when he did start it with Sandra's Lost Orb and Against the Dead Hands. The general premise of that one stayed the same. The basic overall premise of this one's staying the same. But really, they're kind of just becoming maps for me to use. And I used Whiskers in the Dark also, which was the lead into this. So, this one's, I changed the rooms around a bit, and the torture chamber is not supposed to be part of it, which is why I'm retconning a little bit and giving some explanation for what I'm doing here. But this all builds into an actual story here. Like, nothing, you guys aren't just doing random adventures at the moment, it's all for a purpose.
So we move on up to the torture chamber.
Yes.
And this is the first chamber that has windows.
Yes. But you haven't gotten there yet, right?
No.
So, come up. Frank has Gur go out in the middle room and start sniffing. Gur picks up an odd scent. It's a dried pool of blood, but there's some strange mushrooms growing out of it. And Gur goes over to sniff it, and a red cat pops out. And he goes to move away and invokes an attack of opportunity because he's startled. And almost killed Gur in one hit. And I'm going to be a little bit honest. I didn't want to kill Gur. I thought that would be a little bit too mean. But I think it did help set up this thing's going to be kind of mean a little bit. And I'd been trying to build it up anyways, because this could have been a really mean encounter.
Could have been. Spoiler alert, it wasn't.
No, and it's not necessarily any fault of my own. I used the timer again for the next part, which I kicked off here. And I like the way I'm including the timer a little bit in this one, how it's not just waiting for something to happen. It's like this instance in this first round on that creature's turn was stuff dripping from the ceiling. This is another one where I probably should have taken more note from the spectator, and I did. Zip and Iedos both rolled 20s on their initiative roll, so I immediately boosted the red cap's hit points to max. Alright, this is gonna go a little crazy right from the start, just through the dice. And between those two first turns, I think, didn't the red cap get to go first? I might have that.
I don't have the initiative order in my notes.
Because I know that they didn't go first, but they still got their 2 turns. So I did take a little bit note. I bumped up his HP to max, which was like 60. Because I saw immediately that this was going to start going...
Not the way you anticipated?
Yeah. So Frank went first, because he has really high dex. And then it was Zip and Iedos. And then Go. So, like, the red cap was last. That was another reason why. I think we actually got through 2 rounds with him, though. So it's not like you killed him right away, but pretty darn close. So anyways, the red cap starts advancing forward. I everybody got some shots off on him. He started advancing because of his iron boots, movement slow. So everybody got whittled him down pretty decently, probably about a third of his hit points. And then he moved forward. Water started dripping down in front of him. Then he moved forward.
As the water started dripping, Leia called out to Aedos a quick warning about the water, because she's the only one who saw it, because she has noticed since the last room that he sometimes bursts into flame.
Yeah. So, second round, you threw oil on him, and then he made a full advance towards Aedos. I think we might be getting a little mixed up here. But anyway, so he did his boot thing, drop kick Aedos, which I had this planned out how I was going to play, and he drop kicks somebody, hopefully gets him on the ground. His DC 13 dexterity saving throw, which is decent enough to fail. Did manage to knock Aedos down, but only did like 5 damage on a 3d10 or something. It wasn't very much.
No, it wasn't very much, and it didn't help that before his attack, Leia had thrown oil on him because she noticed Aedos occasionally burst into flame. And Aedos, of course, took cue from that and burst into flames. So we dealt some extra damage there, which you weren't prepared for.
Yeah, so that was 20 damage in that one hit. And he was actually already on fire. Like I said, the few of the details on it are a little out of place here. So after he's on fire, then that's when he actually attacked Aedos, because this guy's on fire and he causes, because I think Aedos moved up to engage him or something. Knocked Aedos down, didn't do very much damage there. Raised his sickle, and then the final killing blows came. And then the pool just dropped, and this is where I should have taken cue. I should have had it drop the second round, not the third. This led to some interesting fun points, because we're like, are we still in? Yes. So
Zip, who had created Bonfire again during the original fight with the Red Cap, moved it toward...
Well, he's recreated it.
By
Tried to recreate it on this thing, but it survived its dex check, so I had it, just kind of move around it. And then everybody's like poking at it or trying to do things or whatever. And it's missing and moving around. And then a slithering tracker pops up. And this one went a few rounds. So again, had I dropped this down, I don't think it would have saved the Red Cap any. It would definitely have drawn a little bit of attention and maybe gotten another round out of it.
So Aedos gets up. Frank spent like the entire time moving around trying to evade this thing, but kept getting hit anyway.
Yeah. And Gur sat out most of this because he almost died. Frank's first shot that he took at this thing, I allowed him to take it. I had him roll a percentile to see if he was going to hit Zip, because it's directly behind. The tracker just happened to move or whatever and just caused him to miss Zip, which is something I did with the magic missiles too, which is why only one of the 3 hit Frank, because he only rolled like a 40% or something. And with it being so close, it made sense for that. And then you bring up spiritual weapon, and through pure circumstance, you happen to get the last hit. But yeah, Frank kept moving around. Slammed Gel, tried to grapple him, was getting down to a point, and I actually remembered to play this right, where non-magical weapons only did half damage, but there wasn't, with this creature, there wasn't really a way to show it.
Yeah.
Until we had an actual magical weapon.
Like spirit weapon?
Yeah, because I didn't think Zip's whip counted as a magical weapon, because it's just creating a whip through magical means. It's not actually magically infused.
Yeah, well, it's doing normal damage, not magical damage.
Yeah.
But then Spirit Weapon wailed on it. It rolled high on its hit die too.
Yeah, and through pure circumstance, you happen to get the last kill on it. Because it was down to like 1 hit point. And you had only gotten 1 attack with the spiritual weapon. I forget, there was an attack roll that missed. And there was some kind of saving throw too that it managed to overcome. So you got the last hit, got to squish it.
But I get mad when I bring up something that lasts a long time and it only, has 1 round in combat. So Spirit Weapon rampaged through, destroying all the torture equipment in the room. And that is when Leia took time to look out the window and she noticed that things look familiar because she has spent some time in the Underdark and she recognizes where they are as being the Underdark.
So I'm adding my own little twist on this where it's not necessarily taking place underground. And I need to maybe focus on this a little bit more when we get to it, but most people on the material plane call it the Underdark because you get there through underground means generally. But it's a place where, or it's an alternate where the Shadowfell and the Feywild overlap. So I'm actually going to call it the Feyfell. Which is why you could look out the window and see that you were in this place because there's sky and everything, and it works just like the Shadowfell and the Feywild, where it's an alternate version of the material plane. So you recognize the landscape around, but you also recognize that there's elements of the Shadowfell, there's elements of the Feywild, which explains the Red Cap being there, and why this tower is hidden so well. That you don't necessarily know specifically that is Willorin's tower. I'm sure if anybody stopped to think about it, would make sense, might be able to figure it out.
Well, we did collect from the next level. We collected a bunch of journals and notes to go over during downtime.
Yeah.
Because the next room was just...
I forget, was there anything that you guys found of interest in this room?
In the library?
No, in the torture room.
No, we didn't find anything in the torture room.
Nothing of significance anyways.
No, I think Leia picked up a new knife from the drawer of torture toys.
Just a general knife. Because, there's the one cabinet that somebody opened and it was just basic torture implements. Then we go up to the library. And I think a couple other people noticed things being a little bit differently as far as the sky goes. There was no actual encounter here because my setting for it was the alchemist room. He was experimenting and accidentally created the Oblex and the Grey Ooze, or he was trying to, or something. The wizard that was there previously. The torture room, the Red Cap was created there because of the torturous actions that were happening. It fits in with their story. And the Slithering Tracker was somebody who had been tortured and had killed the skeleton, the other mage that was there. So I think there's actually going to be 2 mages because, for reasons coming up.
So the only thing we got from the library was there's no encounters. We just looked around. Leia picked up the torture notes and the alchemist's journal to review later to try and figure out why and what was being tortured and what experiments were being done.
So,
just to try and figure out generally what's going on here. And that's all that happened there. So then we moved up.
And you found Bo Jones' book.
I thought that was in the bedroom.
No. Oh. That was here. Because this one I had to kind of DM force a little bit. Zip was helping Iedos look, but Iedos rolled crappy, and I said, go ahead, even though I gave him advantage because he's helping. But I gave Zip advantage also, because I figure they're kind of bouncing back and forth as much as a 2 foot tall can.
Right.
So this is where you found Bojanel's book, but I don't think anybody's. Yados has it right now. After Zip found it, but they traded something, or he convinced him.
No, I had it first. He gave it to me first. Because Aedos tried to convince him that someone with magical powers more than his druidiness should handle it.
Yeah.
So...
Well, he convinced him of that, but he didn't convince him enough that he should give it to him.
Yes, so he ended up giving it to Leia, which was great for Aedos because Leia will trade anything for anything. So he traded her a glass orb that when he had it was swirling, but when Leia had it wasn't.
Yeah, when it handed over, it stopped. Oh, that's that was one of the things that I really enjoyed. I'll come back to it. Make a note or something.
So
put a pin in that.
Leia got that and gave him Bojangles' book, which Zip was still unsure about until you know that's a quest item, right? But Leia got a new ball, which she now uses for her light cantrip. It's her new flashlight.
Yeah. So you've done some trading with Zip. I don't think you guys had before in this one, and now you've traded with Yados, so you guys are now friends.
Yes. Because this is her first real trade with Aedos, because she bases her friendship on trade and a mutual exchange of goods. It's how she understands... I don't think friendship's quite the right word, but...
Camaraderie.
Yeah. To work. That's why she gets along so well with Frank, because they trade stuff all the time.
And it would make sense because the only other interactions you had outside of your family were with people you were trading goods with.
Yes.
So, and those are people that I would assume you kind of regularly went to.
Yes.
So, found the book, did some other things, and then moved up to the next level. I said I didn't have an encounter here. This is all treat based.
I don't even remember what we found here. Nothing?
No,
Zip found a key.
Zip found a key. This is the main living chamber of whoever was living here. And bed and hearth and books and, obviously long gone food, because nobody's been here for a while. That was something I tried to emphasize throughout, that there was a nice layer of dust on everything, but nothing seemed to be disturbed, because everybody was dead.
So we get here, we find the key, and now we're at the top of the tower. So now we have to try to figure out how to get out, because the door at the bottom of the tower is stuck.
Yeah.
And we couldn't open it.
So
Leia suggests rappelling out the window, after Aedos suggests jumping out the window or pushing someone out the window.
Throwing Gel out the window. Which is funny because at some point in here, I think it was this room, Gel found something, talisman, if you will, charm, something. But it's a bird's foot on a cord to be worn as a necklace. So it would have been funny to do that. It wouldn't have saved him, but it negates 5 feet of a fall. The first 5 feet or whatever. So he found that. You found the flask that's actually intended for Frank.
I did. I found the flask of aged whiskey.
So we'll have to see if Frank ends up getting that.
I don't know, because Leia's a drinker too. We're drinking buds.
So maybe if he rolls high at some point searching for things in the future, he can find something that you'd actually be interested in.
So we're trying to figure out to get out. Leia wants to rappel out a window and we'll just wander around the Underdark.
Yeah. So that was something that you suggested, and everybody was kind of like, maybe. And I'm like, crap. Am I going to have to shelve everything for now and just play in the Underdark?
I saw your crap face.
I
That was a victory for me because I lived to try and make you go, well, shit.
Well, and you know,
And I've
I would
already done that.
totally let you guys do it too. It's just I'm gonna have to figure out how to railroad you back in or just make something up.
But Leia decided, we'll go down and we'll try the new key on the door, and if it doesn't work, then we'll rappel out a window.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
So yeah, I did. I immediately started trying to think of things that we could do and where to go from. So decided not to. Zip just ran down the stairs.
Holding the key out in front of him.
So we're just like, I guess we're doing this now. Another thing I want to throw in here is there's supposed to be another glyph of warding, which was supposed to be a sleep trap. I forgot about it, and it wouldn't have had any impact on anything at all, so I just kind of let it go. Probably Gel would have been the only one to fall asleep anyways, so it would have been boring and stupid.
We probably would have
And you
left him.
probably would have left him. So we get down to the stairs, and as you get down to the bottom, Zip is able to notice that the portal had been activated and had just closed up. Which leads us into my opportunity to finally do a cliffhanger properly. And there is a figure standing in front of this doorway that nobody has had an opportunity to recognize yet.
And of course, because Zip just barreled down the stairs once we decided this is what we're going to do, we have not rested in a very long time.
Not since right before you came in.
The Gibbering Mouther was the last time we had a short rest.
Yeah, right after that.
And
right
before that, we hadn't had a long rest since before the Gibbering Mouther and the orcs. So we're tired, we're running low on resourcey, and we've got a mysterious figure.
Yeah, and this one should hopefully be a pretty decent one if I remember to run it right.
And if I don't throw any thing in there that you're not prepared for, like flask of oil.
Whatever. It is what it is.
Kind of wish I could have convinced everyone to rappel out the window.
It would have certainly made things interesting. So that was this one. It was a pretty decent session. Like, the encounters didn't go exactly the way that we wanted. The Slithering Tracker, I don't think we've gotten that video up yet at the time of recording this. But the Slithering Tracker had just come in like a couple days before we were supposed to play in our Magic Mystery Box. Magic Mini Mystery Box. So we got it, and I was immediately like, yeah, I'm using this weekend. You know, if I need a backup to help the Red Cap, that's what's going in. Because my original plan was to have two, and I hadn't thought about it much. In my prep, I just kind of read through and was like, I guess deep down just really hoping that this one would be enough. But I'm glad we got the Slithering Tracker because it's a creature that I wanted and really wanted to use. So I got that opportunity, and it fit into the setting. The other thing that I really liked about this is that you guys hadn't done much interaction with people to try to figure out what things you have. So your trade with Zip was the little charm that you had.
Yes, a little charm and a toenail jar.
Which, when you handed it over to him, his natural magic activated it. Which was me just doing because I wanted to show that this thing did something. So it turned into a little mouse that ran up and sat on his shoulder, and we forgot about. But it only lasts for 5 minutes anyways, so...
One of these days we'll go through our stuff and figure out what it is.
And then the orb that Yados gave you was supposed to be an arcane focus for him. And I think I alluded to it swirling when he picked it up. But then he just traded it off to you, so I was like, hey, you just gave up something that could be beneficial to you. But, I'm not going to force anybody into using an arcane focus or anything, because you've got like 10 of them already and you haven't used any.
That's not true. I have used them. I've used the jar of dirt, the vial of dirt for channel divinity. I had the gnarly stick, which was when.
What did we do with that?
I still got it.
Do you? Are you carrying it?
It's stuck to my backpack.
Okay. Yeah. So. Again, I'm not just giving you guys things and telling you immediately what they do. You're gonna have to sit down and figure out what these things are. Besides love notes, which it started getting way out of control with finding all these cantrips and stupid things. So I'm kind of ignoring those on the treasure cards. If there are things that I want you guys to have, like the key, you're obviously gonna find that instead.
Well, we just have to have some downtime. We've been just nothing but.
You have that downtime. It's just nobody's taking the time to do anything. Everybody's going down and drinking and then goes to bed. And then we wake up and start the day again.
Well, Leia's kind of figured out what some of her stuff is. The gnarly stick glows when I use magic, and, my jar of dirt makes, Frank's powers awesome. Because the 2 times I've used it, he's gone right after me.
Yeah. Which is you metagaming that, well, not metagaming, but like meta knowledge, knowing what it does. You're making your character instinctively drawn to it to focus some energy in that way. Prep, there wasn't a whole lot of prep for this one. It was just mostly reading through the creatures and reminding myself how I wanted to play them. And with this new one, I had to do that and stuff. But I don't know. Anything else? Do you have anything?
No, I thought it was a good game.
Yeah, so this next one hopefully will be pretty interesting. I do have, because we don't have the travel bypass again, I do have a couple of things planned, and I changed those because obviously the things that I'm thinking are supposed to be challenging and should be challenging based on what the game says are not challenging for you guys. Either because they're just directly not challenging or because you guys are being creative, which I'm not going to punish. Right? Well, not, in a bad way. I'm going to punish in a good way by giving you more challenging things. So anyways, that was session 11. Might try figuring out how to name some of these things so they can be a little bit more interesting in their title. But that's it. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoy the pictures on there too. Like, comment, subscribe, share it around. Follow us on Facebook. We are putting these up as a podcast too, which you can find on the more popular ones. iTunes and Google Play and stuff. So whatever you use, you can find it there if you want to listen to other places or in other situations. I don't remember what else, so till next time.
Live to roll.